Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast, the Project Investigation Collaboration, which is a collaboration between the founder of the Veritas Project, Robert Curtis.
That's me.
And investigator Todd Boyer, that is me. And welcome back. You know, we're over 5,000 now. We're big in Vietnam and the Philippines still.
The Philippines, yeah.
And today we're going to talk about haunted people, places, and things.
Yep.
There's no script today. We're 100% off the rails and in rabbit holes. So this should be an interesting one for us today.
Yeah.
And what do you want to talk about first? You want to do people, places, or things first?
Well, last week we covered the haunted people syndrome.
Right.
And that's what inspired me to come up with the topic today, because what traditionally we would think that it's a place that's haunted, not a person. But then when you think about it, that makes total sense, right? Is that once people are open to the paranormal, then they notice it more. So like even, places that other people wouldn't consider haunted could be haunted because you're seeing it through different eyes.
Right.
Right. So that was not an answer.
Well, is it a matter of you bringing the stuff with you? That's what I would perceive as a haunted person. And in my personal experience, I think I have something dark that follows me.
Right.
And once I move, it takes about 5 or 6 years, and then it finds me again.
Yeah.
Because I will have night terrors. And I know everybody's like, oh, this, that. But when you got, like, what feels like a demon putting its mouth around your throat when you're frozen in bed, there's a whole different level to that. And what happens is I usually move, and then about 5 or 6 years later, I start having night terrors again.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's something out there that's following me, or, it's just in my brain because I've done too many of these investigations, or what. But,
yeah.
That
100%. I've noticed the same thing. I was in the Marines a lot, so you never stay. It's not like the Air Force where you get stationed to the duty station for like 5 years or whatever. Like if you're in a base for more than 3 to 6 months, you're doing really good. We're all over the place. And it would always be a thing like that where once I went to my home base, and stayed there for like 6 months, then I would notice stuff happening, in the barracks room, and then have to pack up and go on deployment again, which would be like a whole new day because there's nothing there. And then eventually it catches back up to you again,
See, and that makes sense too, because, when you're out deployed and you're in a combat situation or whatever, high emotional energy.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense for places out there to be haunted.
Yeah.
It makes a whole lot of sense. That's one I hadn't even thought about,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's crazy.
It is. It's, that's things that we don't even think of.
Yeah.
But now I'm pretty sure that I brought something from my friend's house. They brought me to their house originally, and I told them, like, this was a few years ago, I said, hey, there is something down this hallway. I get this uneasy feeling from this bedroom at the end of the hallway, and they had a son and everything and all that, and he was having trouble sleeping in there, and eventually, like, that feeling went away from me, but then I started hearing noises in my apartment.
Right. So,
and then I had that thing, which we talked about, I don't know, 3 or 4 podcasts ago, that something passed in front of my bedroom door.
Right.
So, and then of course I said, you don't belong here and all this and that. Yeah. So it moved on, but it never went back to his house. So I think whatever followed me, I got rid of and helped him, in the long run.
Right.
In the roundabout sort of way. So,
interesting. Yeah.
Which is, very helpful.
Yeah.
For them. So.
Yeah, we talk about shadow people doing that, where they move past doorways, but spirits also can do that. Mm-hmm. They say that the center point of your vision, it gets so beat up with seeing bright things all the time that the periphery of your vision is like 80% more sensitive than the point that you look at out of the center.
Well, that also comes from what we always talk about, our ancestors. They had to have that good peripheral vision. Because
saber-toothed tigers sneak up on you.
Right. So that's where we catch a lot of...
They're fast, man.
You catch a lot of the ghosts and things that you see, or the, full-body apparitions, like, out of the corner of your eye.
Right.
And that's the problem, is people who don't believe just blow it off. Oh, it was something out of the corner of my eye.
Right.
But that's the big thing. It is in the corner of your eye. It's there.
Right, that part of your eye is more sensitive.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I know because I know that a lot of times during an investigation, I will kind of like zone in on the floor or an object, and then I'm actually concentrating on my periphery instead of what I'm actually looking at, So
yeah, like you really don't notice what's in front of you.
Yeah.
And we all have those blind spots.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever tested your blind spots? I believe you take a pencil and cover one eye and move the pencil or even your fingertip in front of your one eye, and it will actually disappear because the cones
are bent over or they didn't form exactly perfect. Yeah.
So, and then your brain makes up what's in between there.
Yeah, it fills it in.
And that's something too, is like our brains make up so much of what we see.
Right.
To make it look real that you can't trust your brain.
Right. I watched a really cool demonstration on TikTok yesterday where this guy was talking about sound waves and the way sound waves and power travels in waveforms. And he made this demonstration where it was a cam and it was pushing up these metal rods, right? And he was like, if you look at it, you see a wave moving across, but it's really not. It's just a cam pushing pins up and down.
Right.
But your brain fills that space in and makes it look like it's traveling, from right to left.
Oh, gotcha.
So then he took out every other pin and then turned it on again, and you could still see the wave moving.
Right.
But then he took out every other pin again, and then now you could just see rods going up and down. Like your brain,
because your brain fills it in. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's unbelievable how that works. Stuff. Or like that video that they show where it's the train going into a tunnel, and then the caption changes, is the train going out of the tunnel?
Yeah.
And then your view of the train actually changes. Now it looks like it's going that way.
That's like the wheels on a car at the right speed. They look like you're going in reverse.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of, and our eyes only pick up so many frames a second.
Right.
That's why some of the new TVs are actually more powerful than they need to be because we can't even pick it up.
Because there's a guy I follow on YouTube who does scientific testing, and he actually found out that the human eye can't see 4K.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny because cats though can.
Right.
So a cat watching TV, it looks like a slideshow to them.
Right.
Because their eyes pick up faster than we do.
The frame rate is so powerful, so fast that they can actually see the actual frames of it, whereas our eyes are. Yeah,
that's why dogs will be interested in TV more because their frame rate is slower.
Right.
Not slower than ours. It's actually faster than ours. But so they would be able to see 4K. But cats, even 4K, looks like a slideshow.
Right. Crazy.
So, yeah, it's wild to think about. So, what do you think about, the people like John? The people that are the sensitive people.
Yeah. I think that there is a way that you can tune that in yourself. Like he was a shaman, whatever they.
Right.
Right. And he would focus on, creating that, honing his spiritual abilities, so he became more and more sensitive to
ridiculously sensitive.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't believe in that stuff until I met John.
Right.
And I'm still like skeptical of like half the people out there.
Yeah.
But, John was just
next level.
Next level.
Yeah.
Like for real.
Not like that what's that guy? Edwards. Remember that guy from the 2000s? He used to have a TV show where he would have all the people. What was that guy's name? It was John Edwards anyway, that's what they call cold calling, where the guy, I see somebody in this room has a relative that wants to connect. Their name starts with J, right? And then someone's like, "Oh, my uncle was started." You know what I mean? So then you fill in the gap, and that's all fraud. Right, it's all a scam that those guys do.
But John would tell you stuff that he should not know.
Right,
he couldn't know. He couldn't know. He would pull stuff just out of midair.
Yeah.
That you would have no idea.
Yeah,
and I mean, just blew me away.
Right.
So yeah, John was legit. John was very legit.
Then that's what ended up happening to him.
I think the voices just got to him.
Right.
He
ended up killing himself because.
Yeah, we got to say unalived.
He unalived himself because of how much influence the spirits had in trying to get their point across, which I can understand. If you were a spirit and you're wandering around all the time, trying to communicate with somebody, you find that touchstone where there's somebody that'll actually listen to you. You want to try to get your voice across to them,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's move on to places.
Places, yeah.
And that's one we talk about quite often.
Yeah.
Any place that has high energy, and even you just brought up the barracks on a military base, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But schools, hospitals, churches,
libraries,
libraries, any place where there's a lot of emotional energy. I don't find cemeteries as much.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of other places that I feel are way more haunted than cemeteries.
Yeah.
So
because those spirits are kind of transient.
Right.
In the cemetery, they come and go, whereas like it's more of like a shadow person in the cemetery.
Right.
They're feeding off of the negative energy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of houses, like places that you would consider a haunted house, like the Amityville horror place or something, not that specifically, but that type of haunting, like a place that people go to, like the asylums and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that because the people are there trying to communicate with spirits so often,
right,
almost
they make
every
it worse.
day,
Yeah,
that the spirits are attracted to that place because they want to communicate, they want to try to get their point across to people.
Right.
And because people are there with the devices, with the open minds, then they gather in that place, So even though the place might not have been haunted originally, or it might have had just one or two spirits originally, now it's a whole nexus of spirits because people have brought that energy with it, Like you talk about the Lemp Mansion right across the river. If you had a bottle rocket, you could hit it from here.
Yeah.
And they, that place probably had only two spirits in it originally, or the ones that killed themselves in the building might
Unalived.
be there. Or, they unalived themselves in the building, They, now it's a whole cacophony of spirits in that place.
Don't forget that it was an overflow for...
tuberculosis.
For the hospital, for the Marion, what is it? My brain's not braining this morning.
Yeah, I can't think of what that one was.
But it was an overflow for the hospital, and if you got sent over there, it was pretty much a death sentence.
Yeah,
so there's who knows how many people got unalived in there,
care. Yeah.
So, it's become such a haunted place now. It's considered in the top 20 in the nation.
Yeah. Well, it was a flop house in the 60s and 70s,
yes.
too.
Yep.
So it was like super, super low-income housing where they would rent rooms for days or
they would the big rooms, they would section them off with plywood, and then you'd have 8 bunks in one room.
Right.
There used to be just a bigger room, and now it's 2 or 3 rooms that they sectioned off for somewhere to sleep.
There was a fire there in the 70s, and the fire chief told the newspaper that he was amazed that the building didn't burn to the ground because of all the garbage that was in there.
But it didn't burn because it was so filthy.
Right.
That's the problem. It was the walls were so dirty that the place didn't burn.
Right. That the grease, because they would cook in their rooms on like open fire. They would have like a lump of coal in a coffee can and cook their food over the top of that. So that place, it was so greasy and dirty that when the rags caught fire, it didn't actually burn the walls down because there was so much filth, trash, and just I can't imagine. Now you look at it, it's a mansion again.
Right.
But back then it was a flop house.
Now, a lot of people ask, well, why are ghosts always, older, or why do people always say the ghosts are older? I find that newer houses aren't as haunted because they don't have that generational energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where the family has lived a full life in it, it got sold. Now that family's lived a full life in it, and it got sold. Now you got 3 families that have lived full lives in it, died, had kids, unalived, had kids, all that stuff. So that you've got all that energy compared to a new house.
Right.
So that's why you tend to get these older ghosts in there, because they are older. They simply are older. It was home to them.
They've gotten better at being a ghost.
Right.
Yeah. I talked about that before in one of our videos, where spirit of a person who just passes away, they don't know any of the ropes,
Right.
And so they just kind of wander around, and then they run out of energy, they go dormant, they come back and they go dormant, and then, but a spirit who's been in that house for like 300 years,
Right.
they're on their game. They can knock cups off of tables, they can open the doors and slam doors and knock on the walls. They know all the tricks,
Right.
Whereas somebody who just passed away, they don't.
And then that kind of leads back to what we were talking about last week about people who watch The Haunting at their house.
Right.
Are actually making their house more haunted,
right?
Because they're watching these shows,
right? They teach the spirit how to interact with the environment. They learn how to I can do that now. If I need static electricity, I can just hang out by the dryer,
right?
Which is making a ton of static electricity. Store that up, and I can go break something. That'd be fun, So
that's funny.
Right.
And then with the amount of places that we've been, whether it's indoor, outdoor. And a lot of things, too, are situational of where it's located.
Right.
Running water,
yeah.
High tension power lines.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Put a lot of EMF off. Running water, it's just constant energy created.
Granite.
Granite, yep. Any place with a lot of granite.
Yeah.
Crystals, store energy.
Oh, yeah.
So it has to do a lot with, like, the area and the ground. And I know... So, the Crystal House.
Yeah.
Right? So, I had to go to Vale's Mines, which is in southern Missouri. It used to be a mining town. Mm-hmm. There's not much left of it. There's just a couple buildings, right? But they did have a museum in there. Oh. There was a sign that said, cemetery up this way. You know me, I go out, I look at cemeteries, I take the pictures, I post them on TikTok. Right. So I followed that trail, and it was getting towards dark, and I'm like, I'm not going to be, hiking up here after dark. But I noticed in the ground were a lot of those crystal stones. Oh. And we were 7 miles south of where that Crystal House was. So the crystals came from a high clay area.
Right.
And had all those stones with the crystals in. Even I could even see them buried in the ground as I was walking up the trail, and use them for steps and stuff. So that whole area must be like highly, just full of crystals.
Full of crystals, yeah.
And that's the lead, they call that the lead belt, where Vale's Mines is, where they did lead mining in there. So, yeah, I learned something new this last week.
Yeah.
Doing my job, doing my day job, finding stuff out.
The science of that is they say that you can store data on a crystal.
Yes.
So you can actually use a crystal like a flash drive, and you can actually imprint or store code into. So if you could store code in it, then what else could you store in it?
Right. Exactly.
Anything that's magnetic, you could put spirit energy.
Maybe
in
someday, we'll have the human consciousness.
Right.
What is that? What is that show where they have a chip in the back of their head?
Altered Carbon.
Altered Carbon. They have all their personal information is stored in a chip on the back of their neck.
Right.
And they could take that chip out and put that chip in another body.
Person, and
then your consciousness
is in the new sleeve, they call it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Man, the future.
Yeah.
Could be that way. I mean, we could end up that way, but I mean, we also could all be in the Matrix. So
right. So
we could all be that way right now. So
just interrupt that program and put another program in it. Right. Like the agents.
All right. So let's talk about haunted objects.
Yeah.
Now this is a big one. There's a lot of big name haunted objects out there.
Yeah.
Museums
that are full of them.
Yeah,
and I have some.
You have some
in my storage unit. I have a couple.
So we know about the radio. If you want to rehash the radio, and then tell us what else you got.
Well, I actually have 2 radios. The one is gutted. It's just the frame of it, but it still has energy in it. Mm-hmm. And the other one is a Bakelite little kitchen radio.
Right.
And it had the civil defense setting on it. That's why I bought it, because I collect that wartime stuff. You know, I like that. You know, that has the civil defense channels still programmed into it, or on the dial anyway. And when I brought it back to my apartment, I was amazed that when I plugged it in, it just worked. Like like this, you know, 70-year-old radio. You plug it in, it turned right on, which I thought was amazing. And then I noticed over the next probably 2 or 3 months that I was having weird paranormal stuff in my apartment all of a sudden. Like knocking on the walls, and I would see, like at night, I would hear footsteps in the kitchen area, and then I would see like these shadow tendrils like come out from like the door frame, and I'm like, what the hell is that all of a sudden? You know, like it's weird. And then that's when I put 2 and 2 together, and I was like, that's all started when I brought that radio in the house. So then I took the radio out of the kitchen and put it into those apartments each had their own little storage unit. So I put the radio into the storage unit of the apartments, and then it stopped. But then I noticed, I heard one of the other tenants talking. So we had a central laundry room, and that's where the storage units were. And she said she was in there doing laundry at night and heard knocking in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you ever told me that part.
Yeah, so she complained too. The window of my apartment was one sidewalk width away from where the laundry room was. So in the daytime, I would have my window open, and I could hear people talking in the laundry room. You know, and that's why I heard 2 of them in there talking. And she was like, "Yeah, I hear this weird knocking and scratching sound in here late at night. That tell the landlord there might be raccoons in the attic or something." And I was like, "Oh man, the radio's in there." So that's why it was in my apartment. Then I heard this scratching and knocking, and then I put the radio in there, and now it's in there.
And you know what you just did? You just infected them. With HPS, with haunted person syndrome.
Hear it.
And all you guys in live, you're now infected with haunted person syndrome. So that's the way it works. You start learning about it, and then you start seeing things.
But the reason why that radio has so much energy in it is because it was in someone's house during World War II.
Probably a mom with some kids over there overseas or something, or whole family even.
She would get all emotional and then turn the radio on to hear the news, and they used to do the news at the top and bottom of the hour during the war, and they would tell you, you know, oh, we've invaded France, you know, 80,000 troops were killed on the front, you know, blah, blah, blah. So they would sit there all full of emotion listening to this, and then put that emotion into that object.
And that's a negative emotion.
Right.
You know, the fear and all that.
Anxiety and all of that energy into that object.
And then something gnarly is going to be drawn to that negative energy.
So then a negative entity, it's like putting a lump of coal into a stove. You know, they can use that as power. They can draw off of that negative energy that's stored in that object, and then use that as a battery.
And years. I mean,
yeah, crazy.
So you've got a lot of like dolls and stuff that are haunted. You know, you got a lot of famous places that have. What's the one, the Raggedy Ann doll?
Oh, the Annabelle.
Annabelle, yeah. So that's a haunted doll, and it's a really popular haunted artifact that is supposed to be like one of the most haunted artifacts.
Right.
You know, out there, and they keep it in a glass case, and you know.
But it comes from the Warrens, so you gotta kind of take that with a grain of salt. You know, like they did. Don't get me wrong on the Warrens, because I love, you know, Elizabeth Warren was a person that I'd communicated with when she was still alive. You know, we would send messages sometimes, and they are good people, and they tried as good as they could. But when you see all paranormal through the lens of devout Catholic people, then everything becomes a demon. Right. Like they always say, like, to a hammer, everything is a nail. Right. So that's where they come from. So they believe that Annabelle was haunted with the either the spirit of a little girl that was murdered, or a demon had hijacked it. You know, to try to use it as a fetter for possession. And it kind of goes both ways, because you have people say that the doll is a conduit for evil, right? But then the doll that people are talking about is the doll from the movie, which is in the museum too, because it's from the movie that was about them. But the actual Annabelle doll is a Raggedy Ann doll. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, is it projection is that why the brand new doll that looks like an old doll is the one that's haunted, when right next to it is the real Annabelle doll, which is a 80-year-old Raggedy Ann doll.
Right.
So which you know what I mean? Like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Right? Is it the haunting that made the doll haunted, or was it the knowledge of the haunting that made the doll haunted? Right.
Back to the HPS,
Right,
you know,
exactly.
If you believe an area is haunted long enough and go search long enough, it will become haunted.
Exactly. You bring it with you, and then the spirits feed off of that energy. A lot of times, if a spirit is attached to a person, they'll go to a haunted location. Like we talk with the Fox Theater all the time, that people who have a spirit follow them will go to a place where there's a lot of spirits, and they're like, "Hey, this is
a cool
like
place.
A party,
yeah.
right? I don't want to go back to this.
Yeah,
This guy's sad life when I can just hang out here where all the
energy is.
Right.
Yeah, because it's all because the spirits are feeding off your energy. If you're just one person, when you can go to the Fox Theater where multiple plays have taken place in front of thousands of people who get that emotional energy during the play or during the concert or whatever, and that place is just ridiculously full of energy.
Yeah, people are elated about the show, and they're enjoying the show or whatever. The spirits feed off that energy, and then it's like a Mardi Gras in there all the time.
So, speaking of the Fox Theater, at the very top of the Fox Theater, there's a walkway, and you can't really tell it's a walkway, right? But when you're looking up, and it rings the whole. And they see paperboys, like old-time guys in the paperboy hats leaning out over that walkway, because that's what they used to do, is they go up there and wait for the show to get over so they can clean up or whatever. They would go up there and never look over. Now, I was up there, and the dome is actually not the roof.
Yeah.
It's a ceiling with a gap.
Right.
So to lower that giant ball they have, the chandelier ball, you go up on top and crank it down.
Right.
And they do it twice a year.
Yeah, and clean it.
And clean it. So they told us we can go wherever we want.
Yeah.
Todd was going to go up on the dome. I go over to the door to get access to the dome, and it won't open. And I even put my shoulder into it. I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I'm like, okay, it won't open. So I turned around, and the investigator I was with, we heard, and I turned around, and that door was open that far. And I was like, if something can hold the door shut, I probably don't want to mess with that.
Right.
Because that's got a lot of energy, and I ain't climbing no ladder.
Yeah.
With something with that much energy that can hold that door shut on me.
As narrow as that catwalk is up there, right? You don't want to be up there if a spirit can shove a door open.
Yeah.
Right.
Considering I'm a big dude. I leaned into it. I'm like, why is this door not opening?
Right.
And it just went just a little, just like almost like a double knock in a row. And I turned around, it was open like an inch. I'm like, okie dokie.
That's my really good apparition photo that I have at the Fox was from up there.
I've got one that when I was given tours that year, you can see somebody took a photo, and it's up on the mezzanine up there on the balcony where people see a lady in a dress all the time. And somebody took a picture back towards that area after my part of the tour was over, because they went, they came in on this side, they gave the tour, and then they went out that way, right? So I'm talking to them tour-wise this way. This is where I'm giving the tour. They come in from the right, leave to my left. I'm standing talking to the girl that I was doing my part of the tour with, and somebody went down there and took a picture back at us. You can see my right arm in the picture, and there's a woman standing in an old time dress, standing further down, like like a gray silhouette.
Nice.
That's pretty crazy. I've got that picture.
That would
somewhere.
be about where the spirit that I photoed is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's in that same section of the seats.
Yeah.
You can see it's like a purplish white outline of a person, and I'm taking the photo down at him. But it was funny because that was one of those ones where I would take like 3 shots in a panorama, and then I didn't see it with my eyes, But later on, when I was going through my footage, then I could see this purplish white person standing there in the seats. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like to thank you guys for joining us on the podcast where we've talked about haunted people, places, and things.
Yep.
And don't forget to check us out on all our other social medias.
Like, follow,
Yep.
ring the bell, do
Yep.
all the things.
We're on TikTok, obviously, especially for you guys that are watching us on the live. Also, we are on Facebook.
Everything.
You name it, we're on it. And all my stuff is Investigator Todd. Bob's stuff is the Veritas Project, or
yeah.
RL Curtis.
S. Or S.
RS Curtis, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, RL, I don't want to come up with that. RS Curtis. And don't forget,
Stay curious.
and find the truth, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good day.